Okay, my outstanding friends. Again, this is brand new research, very, very new. But it's been going on for a long time, and that's why I'm coming out with a whole series of why we have to look at this in a whole new light. It's stunning, it's jarring, it's all those kind of things, but reality is reality. So in order to work with my mud fossils and prove the chemistry, because that's what I have to prove the process. Just saying this happened, that means very little. So I did have to learn basically biology, chemistry. I knew a lot of that stuff, but I didn't know it enough to be able to be absolutely certain about what I'm talking about. No, there's no question whatsoever. What I'm saying is factually true. I have support on every side of it. So we're going to be talking about chemistry, biology, and the death process when we had a cataclysm on Earth, which was when Venus almost hit Earth. It boiled the waters. I believe there's a whole series of events that transpired after that, including the biology of the bodies, which is enzymes. They're just chemicals. They're not alive. They're not even living things. They would be washed out from the bodies because the bodies were literally boiled from this hot water event. Some people survived some way up in top mountains, in caves and so forth. And they did know this thing was coming. It took 7 days to hit us. They could see it coming. It was getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And I guess the people just ran to get as high as they could, knew it was going to hit. And when it did, the whole world was engulfed in this huge hot water flood. And that is what created my mud fossils. And I have to prove every word I'm saying. And then I went back and I looked at the ancient documents, and they all support exactly the same words, virtually identical to what I'm saying happened. Now, if you have any dispute about it, I'd love to hear it. But I'd like to get this known and discuss, just open discussion. I hear all these people in a chat room. What are they talking about? Let's talk about reality for a change. What do they call it? IRL, in real life, even though they think it's just silly. No, it's not. This is real life. So let's get back into IRL. All right, this is just published in Nature, and it's about ancient dinosaur black box hints at what really killed the dinosaurs. And they're talking about impact from space larger than Mount Everest smashed into what is near Mexico, the Yucatan Peninsula, something like that. And it killed off just virtually everything. And it was a worldwide tsunami that went everywhere around the world from this huge impact and so forth. And it cooled down the Earth and shut everything down because of this plume of dust, which created what they call a black cap. And so there was a red bed, gray clay, black cap in this area, and I'll show that, which I already have many times, but I'll do it again. And it hit down in this area, and they say it will cause a worldwide global tsunami, like a mile high, something like that. And they originally proposed this mechanism. They thought it up back in 1980. And it was ruled out in the early 2000s because the rock samples didn't contain enough fine dust to cause a global winter. So anyway, they go on and back and forth, so forth. This is just basically all nonsense. But what they did determine was that there was a catastrophe that wiped out virtually everything, and they claim it also wiped out the dinosaurs because they have found these dinosaur remains from this particular layer. And they were trying to find all reasons that blocked this and blocked that. And these are the Cretaceous beds, and then there was a red bed, a gray clay, and a black cap. It's really the Triassic era is what they're talking basically about. Now, they don't understand that, I don't think. But when they say sending large amounts of soot and ash into the sky is combusted. Virtually everything on Earth combusted at this time because of the impact from Venus into our atmosphere, causing boiling hot water to come down. It would compress the atmosphere. Hydrogen and oxygen comes together, it forms water. Now, it can come down as boiling water, I would imagine, because of the heat. And then after that, it boiled all the people, and you know, really there was a lot of that happening. And the worldwide flood caused all kinds of salt waters to invade into huge lakes. In my area in central Connecticut, it became just vast oceans of salt waters, and then they preserved the salt water. Salt is what preserved all my mud fossils. It's the salt. Anyway, and then after that, all this black cap came down. So you got red bed, which is all the dissolved flesh, boiled off all these creatures. A red bed all around the world, 100%. And then the gray clay, which is, you know, some of a little this and that, and the bones and tendons started to settle down. And then the black cap was when all this sending large amounts of soot and ash coming down from the skies. And this was all, they call it, because of this gigantic impact. I say sort of, but it didn't actually hit the Earth. It was Venus, and it bounced off of our atmosphere. And this is all recorded. Some people lived through it because they somehow got way up to the tops of the mountains and caves or whatever. Somehow they lived through it. And there was, I don't know how many lived through it, but I don't think a whole lot. They call it the Chicxulub asteroid impact, unleashed a megaton tsunami, and about a mile high tall, hit every continent on Earth. So there's a global flood, and then the lowlands would have absorbed all this global salts, I mean those ocean salts, and now they're inland in these lakes, and what happens? They just have to preserve everything that's in the lakes, and that's where you're going to find them. I've been trying to figure out exactly why some areas, as mine, is just absolutely, just stunning. I mean, everything I pick up is a mud fossil, and I can find them from giant creatures that are so enormous that it's just stunning. And they are here, and I've had some of my stuff DNA tested and CAT scan and all that stuff. So anyway, they're saying they understand it now because of this asteroid impact. No, and they don't understand what's flowing into that Gulf either. All right, here's what they're talking about, is the dead zone, which is in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, they claim, and I'm showing this so that you can see, they claim that all of this stuff is washing down from the cities and the agricultural and coming in here and causing this dead zone. Now, I don't disagree that there is a flow through all of these network of little rivers and rivulets and all that, and they collect and they send all that stuff down into the Gulf, and the Gulf has a dead zone. This is a dead zone. Stuff can't live there because it's the chemistry coming into there, they're saying, is due to agricultural and wastes and all this stuff. Well, I have a different take on it, and I will show you why.
Called the dead zone. This summer, government scientists say the strange phenomenon happening in the Gulf of Mexico will measure at least 6,800 square miles. That's an area about the size of Connecticut and a little bit bigger than last year. Dead zones are created when excess nutrients like fertilizers and sewage drain into streams and rivers like the Mississippi. When mixed in the Gulf, a biological chain reaction starts and it kills the bottom-feeding marine life. The EPA hopes to correct the problem by cutting pollution along the Mississippi watershed by about 45%. But so far, those efforts are only voluntary.
All right, this is the Weather Channel, and you saw what was running down out of that system and into the Gulf, and that creates the dead zone. So what is really running out of there? They say it's from agricultural primarily. All right, here's what they're showing. There's always going to be cities on the rivers. That's just where people populate it. So they're saying these cities are all over. These are the things that are causing the problem. And they're waste products and so forth. And then they have all kind of agricultural runoff of probably pesticides and all kinds of things. And they end up getting into the Gulf, and that kills everything. Now, the key to takeaway here is it's all draining out of there, yes. All water hits the earth, and it collects and it starts to run down, and it ends up getting into the Gulf, just like it does everywhere else in the world. Rivers run into the oceans, basically. Okay, what I want you to look at is these different coloration patterns here and there. Why are these different colors showing up? Colors are related to transition metals in biology. And this is all biological. I'm going to tell you that right now. And this is the dead zone area of the Gulf of Mexico. And look where it's coming from. Okay, see all this nastiness. These colors are transition metals. They don't just show up everywhere. All right, but they do show up where there's a lot of biological activity. Now, where are we? Here's the dead zone in the Gulf. Okay, the zone of hypoxia. Nothing can live there, basically. And they claim it's because of all of up in this area running down here, carrying all kind of bad nutrients from runoff, and I think I showed you where the cities are and all that, and the farms and all that. No, I say it's because this was a gigantic, venomous creature, and that's the stuff running out of his venomous head into the Gulf. It's being flushed out, yes, but there's still all kind of nasty chemistry in there. And that's the head of Quetzalcoatl. And these right here are his beards. Right there, those are the beards coming out of his head. And this is his body. It runs all the way up the East Coast. And I've shown this over and over. And here's his feathers up here, too. He's a feathered serpent. They call him Amaruca, the feathered serpent. These are the Green Mountains. They use feather meal to grow things green. They sell it, feather meal. Look it up. This is his body, all the way up here, all the way up to Canada. He runs all the way down to the Gulf, and he's spitting all that stuff out. It's running off. This is his headdress up here. And this is these are all feathers. And here's one right here. I'll show you one. There's a good one. It's real easy to see. Well, there's two of them side by side, but there it is right there. There's a feather. All right, and I show you I got a feather right here. The same thing. They have these little, hold on a second. I don't know if you can see it. They have these little bumps. You're probably not going to see that. They have these little bumps in the main vein of the feather that runs down. And that's that. They're tiny little, that gives it the ability to flex like this. These are all like, it's all mechanical. I'm telling you, once I really started digging into this stuff, man, it is fascinating as hell. Because everything has a purpose. I can't find anything that's just nothing. And this is another feather right next to his headdress. That's coming out of Little Rock, Arkansas. Little Rock, Arkansas is right here somewhere. And hold on a second. All right, this is what I just showed you, the feathered serpent. There's his little beards and everything. That's his feathers sticking up off his headdress and a tail, which is the Green Mountains for us. Now, he's eating a giant human being, it looks like to me. I cannot account for the sizes of these things. All I can say is the Earth is what the Earth is now. They are enormous on the Earth. They did talk about titans and things, and even Jesus Christ said the Earth is nothing but a corpse. And it's made of bodies. It's a corpse. And this was in the Gnostic text, in the Gospel of Thomas. Look it up, number 56, I think it is. Now, why would they do these pictures like this? And to show you that on Google Earth you can see this creature. So it's not like it's not here. How do you think about it now? What do you think? Here it is right here. There's his beards and everything. And they spit out toxins. This is toxic. This is really toxic. And this stuff down here, this is like an alluvial plain where everything just sort of flows out and sort of flattens out, which is almost like toxic mud, really, in this case. And then I believe, I read somewhere, it was very, very dense in salts. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but I can tell you what, it's nasty. And nothing really lives in there that good. I guess I think they call it hypoxia zones, hypoxic zones. And I understand the chemistry, I understand the colors, and if you got to get really deep into there, because I have Mount Spur is something I was looking up volcanoes, and the first thing that popped up, I'm not kidding you, was Mount Spur. It blew my mind. And it was looked at very carefully because it's right where the nuclear missile sites are. And I was in Alaska. I used to service the Nike sites up there, and I didn't even know what Mount Spur was. I had no idea. But after looking at it, you want to see something that's going to blow your mind, and I will show you it. Not right at this time, but you're not going to believe it when I show it to you. Anyway, that's a hypoxic zone. This guy's squirting out nasty stuff. Now, we also know about typhon. Now, I had somebody else mention to me the other day that maybe Florida has something to do with him. See how his body wraps up here? Comes wrapping right around. And if you know what to look for, you can see coming around here. This is all runoff of a dead, decaying body. All right? This is where the decay of the body was. All right? Take your time. Hold on. Sometimes that light off helps. This, let me bring it down. If you're not familiar with this, just don't worry about it. It takes some time to sink in. This is his throat. Really, it's literally his throat. Comes right up around, comes all the way down, comes all the way down, all the way down, and then it goes into his body. And this is where all the absorption and all that stuff takes place. Down in here is your guts. All right, and this is the outside of his body. And where he's died, all the stuff is running off and into these little rivulets, and they run out. And a lot of times they're very green because it depends on what the creature's made out of. This one's made out of feathers, so they get. That's why this is also green down here, because of the feather meal. All right, and it's running off of here. See how green it is where it runs off? You know how green all this these are feathers, all the way up. If you look at them close enough and you know what to look for, these are feathers. They're not just accidental little green hills. They become more and more evident as you look closer and closer at different places, like up here. I mean, it's just pretty obvious. Like I say, take your time and look around. But the green just indicates it's absolutely dense with nitrogen. Basically, it's the nitrogen in the feathers that make it extremely beneficial for the plants. They just green right up instantly. And that's what this is. Now, there's another giant dragon in Africa, North Africa, which is typhon. I showed him, and he has the same thing. He's spitting out toxins like crazy, absolute gushing out toxins. And that was the most interesting one, was typhon. But this is the feathered serpent. Apparently he was referred to as Amaruca, and that's where America came from. They say Amerigo Vespucci, whoever he was, the guy that apparently found this area. They say America. I go with America. All right, as I said, it's not just one dragon. They're virtually everywhere. I'm not kidding you. That's just the way it is. And this is a dragon right here. This is his head, the tip of his nose. His throat runs all the way down, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down. This is his body. This whole thing is his body. These are the legs. And the tail continues out here. All right, and it's still his tail. And these are still his dragon scales. I'm going to show you all of his dragon scales and all that. This is his dragon scales on his tail. And the reason you're seeing this colored runoff here is the blood has drained down into this area and it's running out of here. And he does have normal blood like a normal creature. And the tail comes way out here. It flails way out here. He still had feathers here too. Now, you come all the way back up to his head. There's his head right there. And he's written about, this is the exact same dragon that's written about. He's called Typhon. And here's his nose. Comes up around. And that's where his head flares and all the nasty stuff flows down. They have all, you ever see the parades in China and so forth? They have all that little fluty looking stuff going down the side. They're flashy, fluffy looking things going down the side. Big red flared eyes trailing off. Look at that. All right, and that's exactly what they say. He had red, flared eyes. Now, here's the dragon's scaled throat. All right, just follow it down. It's so obvious it can't be missed. And then right down here, his throat is cut. And they said he was cut by Zeus with his great and mighty sword. Now, you're going to have a layer of scales. You see these scales? All of this is just running off blood. That's just blood running off. That's not his body whatsoever. This is his throat. And this is the scales on the outside of his throat. And they also have plates on them. Remember I showed you the feather so the feather can bend and all this? These have the same sort of things, only they're little plates of scales. You see them? Boom, 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 boom. And they run all the way down his throat. These are all these little plates of scales. And this is his throat running down. Now, again, this is a red-blooded creature. This is red blood. Here's what happened over here. It got cut. It got slashed right across here. And the blood is running out here into the desert. All right, and it's red and black. That's what blood is, red and black. Now, the red still has some runoff to it. And the red always creates a lot of green. It's just what it does. The red blood makes things grow green. And the same with the feathers. All right, feathers and red blood have the nutritional value that makes things grow green. And it's just growing green in the desert. It shouldn't be doing that. Now, it is losing its vitality, though. That used to be just, it's so green it would knock your eyes out. And now it looks to me like some dead stuff is running in here, causing it to die. Whatever's going on there is dying. Looks like it to me. There's one little green spot left up here. It used to be like that everywhere. The thing was just brilliant green. And there's still some over here, but the new stuff coming in looks toxic. Looks real toxic. Real toxic. At the very tips, there's still some green left, see? But only way it out here in the tips. All right, which brings back, this makes a good point. What is going on? Why? Why is this turning black like that? I'm telling you, it wasn't long ago. That was as green could possibly be. So anyway, this is his throat was cut. And that's where the blood ran out. And again, it just continues on, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down. These are still the scales. See the scales? This is his body. This is not hills and valleys. That's his armored plating. And this thing is over 1,000 miles long. He's attacking this fish. Now I showed you Quetzalcoatl's beards. Well, here's the Typhon's beards right here. They come out right here, these two beards. You see them? This one here appears to be shooting out some venomous juice. And it comes from that yellow stripe running down his body. You see right here, that yellow stripe running all the way down, that fuzzy looking stuff? It goes all the way down, all the way down, all the way down into this area down in his body, wherever it was initiated from, somewhere down in here. All right, and I'm sure that you could look up, there's some serious chemistry going on here. And that's pumping all that nasty stuff up. All right, and it's coming up through that yellow tube. It just keeps coming up and up and up and up and up. And up and up and up and up. And then it dumps down into his beards. Right here. Now this one, the forward one, is spitting out some really, really, really nasty stuff. You see what's coming out of here? The one in the back here is nothing. It's just sort of laying around there. This one here is creating this stuff. Now, this was sent to that fish that's below, which I'll show you, to attack it and kill it. And it did invade it. But look at this stuff. Now, when that stuff hit some other stuff, and it appears it came out of his nasal area. All right, so don't forget this here. Now, what is this coming down here? And when they hook up together, it really becomes nasty. You see this? When these hook up together, you got some really serious action going on. You see them? It's like almost like lightning going off, and it turns into just fire. I mean, this is basically fire. As far as I can tell, this is almost like fire. Of course, now it's a geology, but at one time it looks like it was a fiery spew coming out of his mouth area here. Now, where did all this yellow stuff come from to mix in with this green stuff? It came up from his nasal cavity. You see it here? Well, follow it up, and guess what they talk about? This right here is his nose. That's his nose. Where he would be, they used to snort, they say they snort fire out of their nose. Well, I could see smoke coming out of there for sure. Now, where is this from? I don't know. But this is up where his nose is. The whole area down here would come down, and that's the bottom of his throat. So this is obscured. You really can't see it, but I can see the edge of his nose up here. This is basically the edge of his nose coming around. And here it becomes a little obscured, but I can tell you one thing. Something nasty liveth in the nose. And this, it's like a river coming down. And it keeps coming and coming and coming. And that's where it starts to hook up with all this other nasty stuff here. And then you get this cocktail of absolute vicious, vile nastiness. And look at it. Look at this. This is about as bad as it gets. All right, now that thing came down, all of that goop, which is dragon venom goop. Look at it. Look at that stuff. I mean, we're talking yikes. That's not just runoff of some. I have no idea how they can possibly explain any of this stuff other than the explanation I'm giving you is that is dragon drool. It's coming all down at that fish to kill him. And it tried. And it did a good job. Well, it ate down into his vital flesh right here. It was going to kill him if they would. Apparently they then died together or something. I don't know. I mean, it's right there. Here he is, here he is. So I can't make any determination other than what I see. I am a material scientist. I look at things and I say, what do I see? And then what was written in the past? It supports it, talks about it, it mentions it. And in Apollodorus 1.6.2 and 3, read those. Apollodorus 1.6.2 and .3. And it talks about Typhon and the giants and how the earth was enraged and created Typhon to go against the gods or something. And then he attacked the gods. And they said they've turned themselves into animals. And this one would turn into a fish and didn't make it away. And he spit that stuff all out. I mean, it's exactly what it says in the text. The Typhon was created from earth, basically. The earth was so enraged after the destruction of her children, the giants and all that stuff, she created Typhon to apparently attack the gods. And this is, and as they said, the gods were so in fear, they tried to escape to Egypt, I think she said, and they turned themselves into animals. Zeus turned himself into, I think it was a ram. Yeah, I think it was a ram. And I think this might be Venus. But it is a fish. That's a fish. All right, you see the scales? That's the tail. That's the upper fin. And it ate right through the flesh. And it's right down into the blood vessels and everything else. This is no joke, my friends. This is the blood vessels. Like Mary Schweitzer was showing, she's gooing all this gooey blood vessels and stuff around. Well, here they are right here, but I don't have to do it in a petri dish. And I could show them in so much more detail, it's unbelievable. These are the arteries coming in, you see? There's still things growing green in here. Because there's still red blood in there, you see that? These are little bushes growing in here. Now, the red blood comes out of there down into the blood vessels. And they run down into the little tubes, which are arterioles. And then they run down into the capillaries, and the capillaries dump whatever's left off into the lymph or into the vein. And this is it. It's stripped all of the coating away, and we can see right down inside and see all of this biology going on. So what happens now? In an area where there's still a lot of moisture and rain, you still got the same chemistry. The chemistry didn't go away. And what happens is it rains, and I don't know how much it rains here, I don't think a lot. But if it did, it would run down like this, and it would carry all this stuff in, and eventually those things find their way back to the oceans and lakes and whatever. And they're going to, if it's toxic, I would imagine the lake is going to get toxic. You see this? And here's where, remember I showed you that green nasty stuff coming down from the top up here? Well, it made it down right into here. And we can see the green actually attacking. You see the green here? This is that green nasty stuff. And it's actually making its way into the fish's body right here. And this yellow stuff here, this, well, not yellow, it's like pink. This is the lymph. The lymph is trying to pick up this toxin and carry it down to the lymph nodes. Watch this stream come down here. Lymph nodes destroy toxins in your body. These are the toxins. See it coming down, coming down, coming down, coming down, coming down, coming down. And this right here is the lymph node. All of that stuff is being flushed into this lymph node, which has filters, and then it has other ways of dealing with these toxic things. Where do you see the filters? See these filters? All these little stripes here. See them? They hold back all the big nasty stuff. See the filters down here? See them? Okay, my friends, I'm back. I got called away for a second. I believe I was talking about these little filters here. You see all these little lines? They hold back the big things, the big nasty stuff. See out here? And then it gets finer and finer and finer. And that is a lymph node. That's from a lymph node. Now watch as I back out of here. You see all that nasty stuff coming down? And all that came right down here from all of this lymph interaction with the toxins. The lymph is supposed to get rid of this nasty stuff, but it's overwhelmed the node. And this one's overwhelmed as well. And this has the same filtration system built into it. You see it? They're all the same. It's not an accident. So this is the lymph nodes. And in the human body, the lymph nodes are exactly the same. So it's being overcome, and the lymph system is being destroyed. Because that's what your body is supposed to do, is take and get rid of this chemistry. And they do it through the lymphatic system. All right, just so you know where they are in the body, they're all up in this area and in your groin. And, you know, these little black jobbers are supposed to clean up your system. This is what they look like, actually, in biological terms. And you can see all those little things going into the center, and there's all these little filters around the outside. This is a real lymph node. And you have three different types of blood vessels. Basically, you have your arteries, which are the red ones, the blue ones are the veins, and then you have your lymph ducts. And all these lymph ducts lead in, and then they lead back out again to go around, scavenge up stuff out of your body. And you have to have the right bacteria in here to consume the wastes. Basically, that's what it is. Now, if you're overwhelmed by, like, toxins, like from this guy here, well, that's a whole different story. Now you're being invaded so heavily, there's nothing you can do. It's going to kill your lymph nodes, which it is. But normally, you're not going to be fighting this kind of stuff. Look at that. That's the lymph fluid right there saying, okay, give me some of that, give me some. And it takes it down and it says, here, take care of this for me. See all this nasty stuff coming down here? And it's still doing it now, because anytime there's moisture and runoff, it runs into these same tubing networks. And they're coming down to the lymph nodes, and it's... I mean, you don't need any microscope to see this stuff. All right, so it's overwhelming. I know. Somebody told me it was. I forgot what she said it was. It was. She had a word for it. It was interesting. It made me laugh, but I can't remember what the word was. Oh, it was jarring. She says, your stuff is jarring. Well, it is. It jars you out of your safe zone. And that's not my fault. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm not trying to make anybody... I'm not trying to do anything other than just show what exists. Now, then we make sense out of it. Because, it's got to make sense. If it's good or bad, I can't help you. That's just the way life is. Now, I'm looking at this as through the perspective of what Jesus Christ said. He says, seek and you shall find. And if you don't seek, you ain't going to find. And once there's rules. I think there's rules you're going to have to pay attention to. That's all I can think. And I don't want to start preaching or anything, because people do whatever they want to do. I can't help them. I can't hurt them. All I can do is show what's real, and then you make your own decisions. But as far as dinosaurs and all that stuff, dinosaurs were ticks. They were parasites. They were amoeba living in the creatures' bodies. This is 1,100 miles long. When they died, they had no more food source from they lived in their guts and their bowels and everything else. And then they went into the oceans, and they became the sea monsters, which attacked the sailors and everything in their ships, wrapped around their ships. Because inside of here, you could have creatures that were 200 feet long, 300, 400 feet long. You wouldn't even know they were there. Have no idea it was there. Like, they'd be just like parasites and fungi living in their bodies. And when they died, they had to go somewhere, and they flushed out, and all that washout that comes out of here. You see this here? They all went out of here, out into the ocean. And this is where they were seeing them out here. You see, this is a runoff of these creatures' bodies. Whatever was living inside of them, and this is stuff living in them, absolutely, no question, was living in and on them. And they had to go find some other way of making a living. And, the ones that made it out. And primarily, I guess the dinosaurs, I would think, were living inside of them, or somehow were protected in their feathers, or who knows where. And they got out and started walking around and making the dinosaur tracks, and then just died because, it was a tough time. So they were on top of these creatures, and that's why they find them. And here they just don't recognize they're there. That's all. All right, like I say, I look into everything. I've looked into the Bible, I've looked into the Quran, I've looked into all of these ancient stories everywhere. Everybody had their own stories. Now, this is the legend of the two sons. And they say at the time there was two suns. One was a dark one was a light one. And I could see everything is a dipole. So I looked into this. I thought this was very interesting. There is an account of when all is still, silent, and placid. So there's nothing. Is a continuous void. All is silent and calm. That is what they call repose, calmness, repose. Hushed and empty as the sky void. There's nothing there. It's just nothing there. Hear now the first words, the first speech. There is not yet one person, one animal, bird, fish, crab, tree, rock, hollow, canyon, meadow, or forest. Nothing. Nothing exists. All alone, the sky exists. The face of the earth has not yet appeared. Alone lies the void. There is not yet anything gathered together. All is at rest, repose. Nothing stirs. There is not yet anything that might exist. Nothing can exist because there's no, well, I'll explain to you that later. All lies placid, silent, in the darkness, in the night. There is no movement. There is only repose. Now, again, I will explain that to you very carefully in a minute. Then came Masta's word, heart of sky arriving here, saying, I behold the void. In other words, he comprehended a void, whoever Masta was. I behold the void. I am its son. Okay, so the new person or the new God that's going to take over this realm, he says, I will be the sun. And I am its light. Yes, the sun creates the light. And I am also its moon when there comes to be one. All right, so he's got an offspring as a moon, basically, or is part of the moon or whatever. So be it, my light is great. And this light is what everything is about. And the sun is what everything's about. And Mastra came down and saw that there was a void, and he says, I'm going to be the sun, and I'm going to shed the light, let there be light. And we all know that story in Genesis, let there be light. All right, now this is extremely interesting as well. We all know that there was a totally catastrophe down, and it happened not that long ago. And this is supposedly, some of this text talks about the poison sea and sky, and I think that's when the disaster happened, because they're talking about it here. It was right after the cataclysm. But here's what it says. The legend of the two suns, the light sun of Masta and the dark sun of Akrama, and those are the dipoles, is a Manichean allegory derived from oral histories passed down from the historical age of poison sea and sky. I believe that's when Venus crashed into our skies. This post-cataclysmic myth allegorizes the darkness of the long winter and the subsequent sky break as representations of a cosmic struggle fought between rival celestial beings. Yes, the god of light and the god of darkness. Many Zonar cultures subscribe to similar dualistic myth traditions. The most notable of these is the cult of the two suns, which derives its theology directly from the legend of Masta and Ahriman. And I read it. It's quite interesting, very interesting. Can I say for a fact that it's true? I don't know. I can't, obviously. But I can tell you what. Poison sea and sky, the sky was totally poisoned basically for a while, and the sky was all burnt up and destroyed basically. So there was a time of that kind of an event, and now they're talking about light. I'm here, I'm going to be the light of the world and so forth. Light I understand pretty well, and it's absolutely nothing more than little dipole electrons. That I've shown very well as well. So what can I say? Okay, this is the summary of it, and the summary is very long, so I'm just going to give you the first paragraph or so. This is the legend of the two suns. It begins with the void. There was absolutely nothing before creation. There's just nothing there. Now, is it a bulb, a region in space that is void, or is it just in everything that was void? I say it's a region in space. That's my take. Now, the empty void of space, this particular region in space, without matter or time, was a realm without thought or purpose. There's nothing there. There's just nothing there. Absolutely nothing. There were no gods, no mortals in that emptiness. Endless emptiness. It's just, see, I think it ended. I think there had to be like a bubble. And they are talking about now that our solar system region exists in literally a bubble. That's the most recent understanding they have of what surrounds as much as we know about our solar system. So, as far as I'm taking it, the sun arrived here in this solar system to take over and fill this void. That's my take. But it says it was endless. And I don't think that's possible. All right? So the realm without thought or purpose, there were no gods or mortals in this endless, I think it was endless, emptiness. It was the emptiness of this bubble. This state of nothingness was eventually disturbed by the creation of a being. And that's, I believe, the arrival of Master, who came down and said, I'll fill this space. I will be your sun. I will be your light. This miraculous creation began with the emergence of a divine idea that simply thought itself into existence. Now, I have a hard time with a lot of this, and who can't? Who doesn't? It doesn't mean I'm crazy for thinking about it. And, you know, I can see more in reality here. And all the ancient texts have almost the same story. If you look at it and think about the way they're interpreting it, it's basically the same story. That's basically Genesis. All right, this is really simple. It's not hard to understand. They always thought a proton and a neutron were just these big balls like that, and they had a couple of little things in their quarks, or they had a whole bunch of little names, but very, very simplistic core to them. And they could smash them to bits and see these things fly off, and they were real excited. Well, it's actually this. This is what makes these. Now, every one of these balls is a dipole. Dipole means it has a positive and a negative. And here they're basically showing what should be a proton. All right, they're saying these are neutrons and protons. See, either a proton or a neutron. No. This is what makes up a proton. This is what makes up a neutron. A neutron is only one more particle above the proton. The proton is charged. It wants one more, or it wants to give one up. The neutron has just the right number, and I believe that number is 1823. Of these little dipoles is a proton. 1824 is a neutron, and that's just what it works out to be. Now, the bigger and the bigger and the bigger these balls get, the higher up you get on a periodic chart. And the reason I can be absolutely certain of that is because of isotopes. They never even talk about isotopes. Do you know that, like, they talk about carbon, or they talk about oxygen, or they talk everything, hydrogen, and it's always just 2 protons, 3 protons, 5 protons, 6 protons. No, it's thousands and thousands of these particles, and guess what? You could take a whole handful of them off of there, and they still call it the same element. I'm going to show it to you right now. People don't understand isotopes, and the only way life can work is to be able to work with all these half-lives, so they can jiggle this and that, and the next thing you know, you got food instead of a carrot. The next thing you know, you got some kind of metals instead of some kind of minerals inside of you. It separates the stuff out. And it does it instantaneously. I mean, just boom, with enzymes. That's the key. Enzymes are the key. And the only way you get the enzymes is the bacteria. So this was all I had to figure out, how these things transition so quickly. Because I told Yale, I said, this could have happened overnight. And I think it might have been almost overnight because of enzymes. There would be so much enzymes in the waters that they might have just been able to hit the right places at the right times, and psst, they turn into whatever they turn into. Enzymes work so fast, it's unbelievable. All right, this is the key. Again, this was a hot saltwater flood which would have washed all the chemistry out of the person's bodies, or the creature's bodies, and into the oceans. So, and bacteria is where these enzymes are created, but that's inside the body. Now, when they washed out, they would be in the waters, and we would be hitting enzymes all over the place. They normally are not going to be out there. They're normally going to be inside your body, produced and not flushed out like this. This is just my take. This is just a guess. But what happens is bacteria are the factories that produce the enzymes. So they're inside your body producing the enzymes as needed. Now, virtually everybody's body is going to be attacked, and they'll be producing all kinds of enzymes for all kinds of violations to the creatures. And these enzymes from these bacteria, in the right quantities, or in the right conditions, they take care of you correctly. They maintain your body. That's what enzymes do. They're not alive. They're chemistry sets. They're extremely complex chemicals. There are complex chemicals that are produced by bacteria. And they're actually the factories. It says they're actually the factories that produce. and they consume the waste and do all the stuff for you. But when this flood hit, I believe there was enough of them in the oceans that they were able to do their biology on everything else that was in the oceans. All right, I think I've shown you that all around your skin is all these bacteria that create enzymes. The enzymes protect you, and the enzymes are extremely elegant. Now, bacteria are living cells, and they live right under your skin. Now, all the membranes have their bacteria in them, and they produce these enzymes. And the enzymes are what attack and break down and kill things and do all that stuff. It says, better said, bacteria are the factories that produce enzymes. And that's on the surface of every organ. Every membrane is saturated with these bacteria and enzymes. And as the water's invaded, it washed it out, I think. This is my take. And then you have all this half-life activity. Okay, don't forget, this is my theory that all protons and all atoms are made of nothing but electron dipoles. And I can pretty much prove this. When you take the periodic table, and let's just take iron, Fe. Well, normally they say it has so many protons and so many neutrons, and that's it. Well, that's not true at all, because you got all kinds of states in between, and they're called isotopes. These are isotopes of iron. What's an isotope? It means it's not really iron, but it's somewhere in that area. And here's a bunch of iron that they call sort of stable and, so forth. But this is only just little bits and pieces. Look at how much, every one of these is iron. But none of them weigh the same amount. They don't have the same energy. They don't have the same number of neutrons and so forth. They're just different states of iron. And that's because some particles are missing. Sometimes there's too many particles. It depends. That's all it is. It's just, and if you did all the weights, you'll find out that every time it changes a state, it adds another electron. Here they are right here. These are all the different states of these irons. All right, and what ends up is you get half-lives, and the half-lives are being, these particles are being destroyed by the enzymes. All right, every single one of these is supposed to be iron, and they call it iron 26. No. 26 is the number of protons they assign to it, and then they give it neutrons of whatever they want. They throw in more and more neutrons, and then they give it an isotopic mass. Is different. They weigh differently. Every one of them weighs differently because it's got more and more particles, or less and less particles, and they only stay together like that for it's like instantaneous. They break apart and fall apart and snap back together. That's that's why it's radioactive. They're just they're going like crazy. And then here's what they are. The daughter isotopes are what they give off, and they break down into other particles. And here it is, magnesium, chromium, and all kinds of stuff. Cobalt. So it's a process of enzymes is what I'm figuring now. And there was all these enzymes were in the water during this great flood. And that's what caused all of these things to change. And transition metals are heavily involved in this process as well. Transition metals are right in here. And these are the things that normally are really running around through your body. You have all of these metals in your body, and they carry and drop off things. They have what they call oxidation states. All right, this is the key to takeaway here. Transition metals are these different colors. I'll show you in a second. They form color compounds and complexes. The colors can vary depending upon the charge, the number of extra electrons or missing electrons. It depends on the charge, what color it will be. And the number of type of groups of atoms called ligands, they attach to that core. The little pinchers that attach from the metal core, and here it is right here. The metal core comes here. There's titanium or vanadium, whatever it is, and then it attaches to other little particles, brings them around the body, drops them off, and goes back and gets some more. That's what these things do in your body. And that's why you have all these different colors. And these are the oxidation states. And this gives them charges to pick up and deliver things. And there's just not just these. This whole thing is transition metals. And they're in between the periodic table of elements. They're in the middle. That's why they have all these different oxidation states. And without these, you can't carry things around through your body. All right, you want to see something cool? There's a lot to see here. This is a heart. It's an opal heart. It was cut right across here. And what you can take away from this is all of these are transition metals. You see all these different colors? The blues and the greens and all that. And the red is obviously blood. You see the brown here? You see the brown on the outside? Brown around the outside? That is fascia, where it's not taking on a lot of color. It's more or less a stable fabric. It doesn't need to absorb any metals. These are living, vital flesh. It's always taken in and given up stuff. That's why it absorbs all of these transition metals, because this is vital, flexible, moving, functioning muscles and all that stuff. That's what absorbs these metals. These, they don't need to absorb them because they're more or less just like a rubber bag around the heart. And the valves and the tubing in here is the same thing. It's pretty stable. It doesn't have to be, it's not like a muscle. It's just a tube. And that's just a coating. These here are a little different. Now, because this is a certain color here, it means it absorbs, let's say, titanium, whatever it is. But you got blue, you got green, you got red, you got all these different colors. And if you look at them carefully, you can see they're pretty discreet, and they coat around different organelles or whatever these things are in here. I don't even know. They're inside of the ventricles and so forth, inside of the, where the valves are and all that stuff. These are all valves and ventricles and the plumbing of the heart. And it lays on this side like this because these are the heavier particles and metals. So they would have been down, and that was the lighter side would have been up. And these form where there's extremely high amounts of blood, which was a heart, obviously, but this must have died in a certain compacted where that blood just stayed in there, and it found its way to stabilize. Because every one of these wants to be stable. Every part of it wants to be stable. But this needs, like titanium. This over here, this is the blue-looking thing, needs vanadium, whatever it is. And you got greens, you got all stuff, and that's how opals form. And they take the different transition metals from the blood, and that's these transition metals right here. And they come in and they form stability. So you need 3, I'll give you 3, and you give me 3. Oh, hey, I'm green now. From now on, I'm going to be green. We'll just stay together. That's stability. All right, so I had to really learn everything right up the line on all this stuff, and the biochemistry and everything. The anatomy is structural, enzymology. That's what I'm talking about, is the enzymes. Metabolism. Well, what is enzymes? Enzymes, like I said, they live in the outer layers, and they are washed into the oceans and the waters when this hot water flood came. And where were they? They were right on the outside of this. This is the outside layer of your skin, and that's where they are floating in this layer here. And they would have all been flushed out, just like that. Normally, they're sequestered and they're just waiting around to be activated. But all of a sudden, zoop, they're all activated at once. So there is a possibility this stuff just instantly got slammed, because enzymes are like, they work in 1 second. They do as much chemistry as normally would take a year to do in 1 second. And one enzyme, all by itself, that one can affect thousands of other particles. It does one, and then it doesn't even get used up. It goes to another one, another one, another one, and it could very well have happened in a number of hours, this mudfossil process, but only in the presence of extremely hot salty, silicate-rich flood. And the silicates come from the skin. There are 50 times more silicates in the skin. So we got the silicates all covered, and then we got the enzymes coming out. And the enzymes, like I say, they don't even get used up. They could do one over here, a click, 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 and they do all of them. It's called click chemistry. And it's just like executing 1,000 other particles at once, hundreds, millions. And instantaneously they go to another million, boom, and another million, boom. And when they're all done, sooner or later they give out. But this would have been a worldwide enzymatic catastrophic flood. That's the first time you ever heard that one, I'm sure. All right, like I said, I basically found this layer in the mud fossils, and I had to just to research this for 10 years, 15 years ago. I was researching this layer because it was not understood. They're calling it meteor interstition a newfound organ, this whole area, this fluid-filled highway. Now, so anyway, this is only 2018. They finally decided, yes, this is something new we didn't realize it was here. And all of this stuff is these little balls that I show over and over, and then this fluid-filled highway with the bacteria and enzymes in here. And that's what I'm saying. They're supposed to stay in there until they're needed, and now they're all of a sudden are flushed out into the system. That is what I think could have been a serious factor in this preservation. All right, so that's the start of the whole thing. Is there's a batch of bacteria. This is like housing for bacteria. And what does a bacteria look like? This is what a bacteria is. They're not all exactly the same. They got all kind of different shapes, and some of them have one flagella. Some of them, I don't know if you even have a flagella. Some of them have more than one. And inside, they have DNA, just like any creature, any living thing has DNA. And then they have these little balls, these ribosomes. And inside those ribosomes are enzymes, and they squirt them out to go and destroy things. And I'll show you how elegant these ribosomes are. And they're also basically proteins as well. All right, so don't forget, we got that layer, and these that live in that layer, and they squirt out those little things that are called ribosomes, which are these things here, ribosome, and it has all kinds of chemistry in it. I mean, it's just a ball of little tiny, it's just like this. It's got a bazillion little particles in there, and they're attached in an exact certain way to create what's called an enzyme. And this is what an enzyme looks like. Here's a ball. It's got a sheath around it. It's called a capsid. It pops off, and then out pops the enzyme. All right, and the enzymes are either part of or create proteins. You can look at a certain way, but our enzymes, proteins, just say yes. Just say yes. Now, what do they look like when you really look at them? And they look like that. Basically, it's like that. There's all these little magnetic signatures everywhere. All of these are little magnetic poles. Now, what does that mean? Big deal. That's one enzyme. Now, that can come up to a mass of other particles that are a uniform mass, and if it senses the right molecular signature, it goes click, and they all die at once, or they break, or the half-life happens, or whatever. The chemistry happens instantaneously. Let's go with that. That's the statement I will stay with. Now, what exactly happens right here? Here they are in that fluid-filled highway. That is it right here. That's it right here. This is cancer. Well, what does cancer do? It grows into your vital flesh, right? Usually skin abrasions, all that stuff, it just happens. This stuff is made to come and go. Not down here, not inside. You shouldn't be able to get this down. Once it gets down, anchors itself in and starts extracting its vital fluid, then you got serious cancer. And here's what it looks like. It actually does look like this. Breaking through the barrier. That's why you have to keep the right bacteria in that barrier, or you're going to get invaded. It's just as simple as that. And that's this barrier right here. And these products are manufactured right in here. And they're supposed to stay in there, but during this hot water flood, I think they were all released at once. And again, they're not alive, and they're just extremely reactive to anything they touch up against. If they sense the right, boom, 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 they could be doing this all day long for a couple of years, and everything's turned into stone. I don't know. That's a guess, but it's possible. All right, I really want to bring home the fact about these enzymes. Enzymes are the proteins. I showed you that. These little squirrely looking things. And they act as biological catalysts. A catalyst means it makes something happen almost instantaneously. And accelerating chemical reactions. That's the whole key. It accelerates it. Otherwise, life would never work. You have to have these enzymes, and they're made by bacteria. And if you don't have the right bacteria in your body, you have all kinds of digestive problems, and then you get sick. And so the enzymes are the key factor here. And I think they were just flushed into and not released as they normally would be. They're just squished into there. All right, just think about this carefully. Catalysts, like other catalysts, enzymes are not reactants. They're not used up. They're not part of the reaction. They help the reactants part change the reactants to interact, but are not used up in the reaction. They're not used up. Instead, they may be used over and over again. They just go on to the next one and the next one and the next one. Unlike other catalysts, which are broad-based, enzymes are usually highly specific. They go for one exact target for particular chemical reactions. They generally catalyze only one or a few types of reactions. So they're just not broad-based shotgun approach. They're boom, 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 exact spots. Enzymes are extremely efficient in speeding up reactions. They can catalyze up to several million reactions per second. As a result, the difference in rates of biochemical reactions with and without enzymes may be enormous. And you're talking years instead of microseconds. This is microseconds. Done. And otherwise, you'd go back on vacation 10 times and come back and it's still not done. That's how good these enzymes are, because they're extremely elegant molecules. They're extremely elegant. I mean, look at the damn thing. Just think about what you got here. And they come out exactly that way every time. When they're squirted out, they come out in a chain, just like this. They're called I got one right here, polypeptides. I guess this is the best way. See, these are the amino acids. There's 20 of them. And they hook up all these different colors. And when they come out like this, and then they get into that ribosome, and when the ribosome splits it open, and it breaks into its little bits and pieces, the sheath comes off, and you get into your enzymes. And all these enzymes, they make them look cheap. This is what an enzyme really looks like. All of these, see the blue and the green, the red and the blue and the red, and all that basically is magnetic signature. And it's so perfectly elegant that every single one will be identical to the last one. It doesn't work. It's called denatured. If one of these goes like that, it's all over. It doesn't work. All right, so, but they're extremely durable. As it appears to me, they're extremely durable. Like it says, they don't even get used up. It goes bang, and then it goes bang, and a bang, and a bang. And it's called click chemistry. So when it comes up and it senses all of that magnetic signature that it wants to attack, it literally just triggers like a magnetic pulse. And done. It goes to the next one. Done. And it could be 100,000 of them there. At the same time, they all pick up the same pulse. And they are highly specific. I mean, you got to really do a little just looking into the details. It makes 100% sense. All right, this is from Libra Text. They have some very good articles and so forth. And it's about the enzymes and how they're biomechanical reactions. I'm just going to play the first couple seconds of their little video, and it goes on for almost 10 minutes, but it describes how important enzymes are. Now, I'm going to open this up. Listen. Here we go.
Nature. fascinating in its variety. However, plants, animals and human beings would not exist without enzymes. They are vital, natural substances, proteins which occur in all organisms.
No, I agree. They are natural substances, but this is like one of the top-end programs you could ever imagine. They're working with 20 codes, and these are programs. No, don't get it wrong. So is DNA. That's a program, and they only have so many digits to work with. 20 of them, the amino acids, and they link them up in all these different ways, and they come out with something that is so targeted, so specific, so exact, and so destructive, or whatever it has to do, it does.
There they control and accelerate biochemical reactions. Enzymes are thus biocatalysts originating from nature. But they don't only play an important role in the living organism. Many very ordinary things can no longer be imagined without enzymes. For example, baking bread.
You could come up and watch this if you want, but it's everything is about invasion. It's nucleophilic substitution and invasion and breaking down with these enzymes and breaking the chemicals apart. So they're like this to begin with, and all of a sudden they grab a bunch and pull them off this way. Well, you got a new substance. And then gases are released and things puff up and scales are coated around them because the oxygenation of the outer layers and so forth. It's a very, very complex situation, this chemistry. I've been in chemistry my whole life, and especially into the nuclear stuff. That's what I did. I was in the Army long ago, and Nike Hercules missiles. Basically, I didn't service the actual missiles themselves, but I serviced the sites that they were housed in. And anyway, all this stuff has always fascinated me, but I never had the ability to really demonstrate the light and all that stuff, which I've shown over and over and over. We can see these particles of light, and you see what's seen with CMOS, complementary metal oxide silicates, and they pick up these little particles. They don't interfere with them. They just hit them like light is hitting you in your eyes. And long ago we were picking these up. 2012 we were doing those experiments about light and so forth. So the whole thing fits together for me now. And I notice it turns into a ramble every time, but there is nothing that sits on itself. Everything has to be tied together, and everything is life. So all these chemicals came from somewhere from life, and they all are made out of literally the same exact identical particles of light. When light comes down towards us, it is in that same particles. It's the tiniest particles there are, and you shine lights onto plants and they grow because they really absorb that light, just as the earth does, just as we do. All right, light is life. Let there be light. I meant let there be life. And that came out of the sun. And I've been looking into the sun and the ancient sun worshiping cultures of the sun was the god that gave life to everything. And as far as I can see, that's true. And, that gets another whole nother realm of deepness. And I mean, that gets deep. So I'm just showing what I can show. And then I go back and look at these ancient texts, and boy, I'm telling you, they are knocking my socks right off. I was never religious because I had nothing to back it up with. There was nothing physical for me to back it up with. It was just a bunch of words written a long time ago. Who knows if they're right or not? But now with my evidence, I'm 100% on board with this. And listen to what Jesus said. This is Jesus Christ. He says, if they say to you, where did you come from? Say to them, we came from the light, the place where the light came into being on its own accord, like from the sun, established itself and became manifest through their image, which are the gods. If they say to you, is it you? Say, we are its children. We are the children of the light. We are the elect of the living Father. He chose our molecules to become life. And we are the elect. If they ask you, where is the sign of your Father in you? Listen to this now very carefully. Say to them, it is movement and repose. Movement, you know what that is. Repose is nothing. It's a dead silence. Now, he also said this, 56. Jesus said, whoever has come to understand a word has found only a corpse. You understand the world, you found only a corpse. Whoever has found a corpse is superior to the world. Well, I don't know about that, but I can tell you one thing, it is a corpse. And there's nothing but corpses. I can't find anything that was never alive. So the sediments are just things that ran off from dead bodies.